Alright, guys, welcome back to the Dragon Guide DOA6 edition. Now we're in part 2, and this time we're going to be covering Jann's Dragon Stance. Now, as a little bit of a disclaimer, the previous part was a little bit of a primer on the basics and the general information for the character. But now we're going to be getting to a few more specific aspects. So going forward, this is taking into consideration you having a level of understanding of the character, like you've played him for a while, but you want to improve your gameplay and stuff like that. So yeah, we're gonna be covering some more deeper subjects, as well as stuff related to frame data, so all that stuff. There's a lot of resources for becoming accustomed and familiar with frame data. So yeah, with that introduction out of the way, let's just get right into it. So right away, the concept of having a stance for your character is a pretty technical thing. Not every character in this game has access to a stance, and immediately you have to always think about the transitions, the places where you can utilize it, all its applications, right? So yeah, like we talked in the previous part, Jann is a pretty jack of all trades, basic, beginner friendly, I guess, character, but he can also be very technical, and the Dragon Stance is a part of that. So the Dragon Stance basically entails you performing a move and immediately transitioning into the stance itself, right? So there is a variety of ways that you can transition into this, as simple as your 6P, right? Any variation of it. Put this character to block right there, right? So from any of that variation, very basic stuff like that, to even from taunts, right? Even your taunts have the ability to put you into stance. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, some of the more useful transitions you'll be using is, as you saw right there, 6P, right? Probably the quickest one. I do believe it is the quickest one, actually. Just throw out your 11 frame mid, immediately transition into stance, right? Now before we go into transitions, we have to break down what you actually get off of the stance itself. So to emphasize on something that we talked about in the last part as well, as soon as you go into Dragon Stance, Jann immediately turns into the fastest character in the whole game, bar none, right? You get access to a 9 frame jab, which is standard for a lot of characters, lightweight characters. They have regular standing 9 frame jabs. You get access to one from your stance, which is very good. But outside of that, you also get access to a 10 frame mid. So we talked about already how 6P is 11 frames, and that is the regularly the fastest type of mid in the game. But going to Dragon Stance can go even beyond that. It can give you a mid the same speed as a regular jab, right? So that's pretty crazy. And then even beyond that as well, you get an 11 frame mid kick, which is again the fastest type of mid kick in the game. Regularly, some characters have access to 12 frame mid kicks. Even Jann himself, once upon a time, his 6K was 12 frames. Rip those times. But yeah, you still get access to an even faster mid kick from Dragon Stance, right? So those are your 3 primary follow-ups. You have your punch, your mid punch, and your mid kick, right? Now we can actually get into some transitions. So we talked about last time how 9P is fantastic now, right? Because you get the transition and it leaves you plus. So this immediately means that before from this you were uncontested, but most of your transitions will leave you minus, at least in the neutral. But with 9P it'll actually be plus. So you'll be even faster, even more difficult to be uncontested. As you saw right there, you also have 6 extra K.
You can utilize this. This is another thing about this stance, is that similar to Jann as a whole,
in his character, you can also use Dragon Stance for a variety of uses. It has a lot of utility, so you can use it to extend your pressure, combos in the neutral as well. You can go into Dragon Stance and bait reactions out of the opponent. You get access to some of your keep out tools from stance as well. So yeah, it's a very dynamic stance. You can use 6K+K, kind of wait there if they try to approach you, or they whiff something in retaliation. You can whiff punish them very easily. In DOA6, you also got the chance to transition into Dragon Stance from your 7K, right? Your standard height launcher. This leads to some new combo routes, right? Very optimal combo routes against heavyweights that allow you to go into your strongest ender. So that is immediately very good. It doesn't have a lot of utility in neutral, but it has utility in other situations, like for example from the gunner, right? If I can get it. God damn it. Well, I kinda got there. You get the idea. If you want more information on that, we'll be covering some options from the Dragon Gunner, as well as some implications in the future wall game and tech videos. So take a look at that if you're interested in that. But yeah, you have a ton of transitions into this, some better than others. You have more gimmicky, I guess, situational ones, like for example from the switch step 2B+K ride, you can transition directly into it. There is a little piece of tech that you can utilize with this, but again, that's for another video. But yeah, generally the transition that you're going to be looking for is 6P and 9P when up close, and then the neutral itself, 6K+K, and then you can start using 4PP, like we talked about in the previous part as well. If you get people respecting this either in the neutral or up close, you can start canceling it, right? And get like a quick poke or the low, right? Throw them for a loop. So yeah, you have a ton of transitions into this, and it is very strong. It is a very strong stance, especially now in DOA6. Again, like I said, your strongest ender now comes off of Dragon Stance for combos, so that is very good. But now, as you saw right there, there's ton more options off of stance, so we'll be covering those now. So we've already covered the main 3 options that you have off your stance, your high, your mid punch and kick, but now we're going to be covering all other options. So as you saw a little bit earlier, you have access to your 6K off of stance with a simple 6K input. Right now in DOA5, this move used to have a lot more differences. It's a little more normalized in DOA6. So before, regular 6K used to be -4 on block, while the stance version would be -3. They normalized that. Now all versions of this move are -3, right? So that's very good. At peak range, you can even get to be -2. See if I can get that. There we go. So yeah, it's a very strong tool to have. Like we said, in the neutral, you can make them expect you being like locked out here, but you have a very strong keep out tool as well. So that's very good. We also talked about before the low, a very strong addition to the Dragon Stance in DOA6. You have a proper mix-up tool off of stance now. This move is very good because it is 20 frames, so it is borderline unreactable, and it is also a natural combo. What this means is that it is a 2-in-1. The opponent cannot hold in between, and it will also J on block, right? Unless they just keep holding down, which they will duck the second hit. But yeah, it is very good, especially by the wall. When you're at the wall and you have them with your wall throw, which again we'll cover in the wall game video. You hit them with that. That is a very scary option. You get a full wall combo, and even here, like say you blast the opponent to the wall, and then you kind of get in on them and start putting on some pressure. You do this, and it is a very scary 50-50. You know, getting hit with the low or a mid for a lot of damage at the wall. So yeah, it is a very good tool. Very good for conditioning as well. You know, when you make people scared of the low, they try to look for it, you know, or start like panic low holding. You can start putting in your mids and keep them guessing. So that's very good. That was a problem with the stance before, is that you really didn't have any form of pressure or mix-up from it. And outside of that, a problem that still is present with the stance somewhat is that not all your follow-ups are very safe. Only the jab is really safe at -3, right? The mid, all your mids are extremely minus. Not extremely punishable, but are minus. So yeah, if your opponent is sharp, you can get punished for this very easily. The best way is again conditioning with the high and the low, the classic 50-50, right? If they start respecting these, or they're just kind of like reacting without thinking, so they will just throw anything out of this stance, you know. A quick fuzzy off of the high will usually take care of that, you know, and they'll lose their turn. So yeah, that you have mix-up options now for the stance, but it is still very unsafe. And now we can go into some other moves that you have access from. The dragon stance, we have P+K here. Now this used to be a solo follow-up in DOA5, and as you can see right there, you can loop it, right? You can do it indefinitely. Now in DOA6, we got 2 more follow-ups off of this, right? You can end it. It ends in a +2 guard break, which is very good. Now there's a few things with this move. We talked about it somewhat in the previous part, but you can utilize this tool as a way of mixing up the opponent. If again they like to hold, more so guessing rather than reacting, right? You throw this, that jails, so they can't hold in between, you know, and they're expecting the mids to come out. They can hold in between the gap there, so you can whip punish their hold, right? Or delay it and just come out of stance and throw it, right? Stuff like that. This is a good option because again, it is only 12 frames in this game. This used to be a lot slower, I believe. It was 16 frames in DOA5, so yeah, it is a very proper tool to utilize when they start respecting your plus frames, right, off of 9p4. So yeah, you can start mixing this up. And a very strong part about the second follow-up right there is that, as you can see right there in the frame counter, this move recovers in 14 frames, and that might not mean a lot at face value, but it is very important because your jab, the fastest move in your arsenal, recovers in 13 frames. So this whole thing recovers only frames slower than a jab, and that is very strong. You can utilize that again for follow-ups. You know, this is what allows Jann to have all these crazy combo routes that you have now with 4PP and the enders, is because this move recovers so quickly, right? So again, like we were talking about before, you can condition the opponent to expect the whole thing, right? To fear the guard break, and then you cancel this and you're free to go. It recovers extremely quickly, so it is a valid option when you're trying to throw off the opponent's rhythm, you know. But it's not something that you should just spam all the time, because it can, you know, ultimately it can be just beaten by sidestepping or simply blocking, right? Your options after it, even after a +2, are not that scary, right? So yeah, you have to be careful with it. Now you do have 6p+K. of a dragon stance. Both of these inputs, P plus K and 6P plus K, were reversed in DOA6. The inputs used to be the opposite in DOA5. But yeah, just a little odd change there. This used to be your critical burst off of stance in DOA6. In DOA5 I meant. It doesn't serve much purpose in this game particularly. But at the wall it is a very strong tool to have, because this actually has the ability of wall splatting. Right, so you can wall splat from a mid. So like we were talking about before, you saw right there, if I get the opponent in a stun at the wall and I go into stance, now it's a three-way option of you getting wall splatted, right? Because you have the low, the mid kick, and the mid punch, right? And all of them can wall splat you for a lot of damage. So it's a very strong option. Again, we'll cover more of that in the wall game video. But yeah, it still has a use, even though, you know, it's not as crazy as a critical burst in DOA5. So yeah, it is still a good move to have. Now, for the seasoned Jann player, I'm sure there's one thing that you've been thinking about and are wondering why I haven't talked about. But it's come to that point. So we are talking about 1P plus K now. So this is Jan's classic step back. I believe he got this in DOA3. But of course we only got the stance until DOA5. So this move gained so much more utility, so much more use since that game, you know, and it was all because of the dragon stance. So this regularly, you know, used to be just like a little bit of an evasive maneuver. You know how like the ninjas can do like cartwheels and stuff like that to create space. This is Jan's version of that, right? But the cool thing about it is that it immediately puts you into stance. So this already allows you to create a lot of presence when you perform this move, because, you know, the most basic setup, the most basic option that is utilized is you basically getting a knockdown on the opponent, right? Let's take these info box out of here. Alright, so you get your knockdown, and then, you know, it's basically the game of the opponent can wake up kick, but you step back and you whiff punish it, right? And this has been a bread and butter of Jann since forever now, right? So you can utilize that, like we were talking about in the previous part, to condition the opponent. A lot of people, when they're knocked down against Jann, you know, and they see you starting to like step back or stay at this range, and then they see this step back, they're immediately thinking like mid kick, right? So they're like just stay in place blocking, or they'll hold, they sidestep, right? Again, much like the dragon kick in the previous part, you can get a lot of information on the opponent just by doing this, right? So it is a very strong tool. Again, you can create space with it, and the cool thing with it is that you're immediately telling the opponent like, no, you can't come at me for free, because if you just start rushing me, I'm gonna poke you, right? I'm gonna quickly just get back at you with literally the fastest moves in the game. So yeah, it is a very strong tool, and you can utilize it in a variety of ways. Mostly just the wake up game. You know, the ground game in DOA6 is not that great in the grand scheme of things, you know, because you basically every time that you get the opponent on the ground, you have to guess what their next action will be. It's not always a beneficial thing for the attacking player, right? You're not really rewarded for knocking down the opponent, but with something like this, you actually can take advantage of the situations, right? You can create some form of mix-up, right? So yeah, it is very strong. You get access to all your follow-ups, you know, if you want to get gimmicky with it or whatever, you can do that. But yeah, fantastic tool. Allows you to create space, you know, start the spacing game with punish, all those things. So yeah, very strong tool. Alright, I believe that will be it for this breakdown on the dragon stance. That is another part of the dragon guide done. As I mentioned before, we have 2 more parts coming. The wall game and the tech guide videos. And of course, I also want to mention that the combo video that came a while ago is part of the Dragon Guide. You can refer to that in terms, for anything related to combos and stuff like that. Even though some stuff in the video is outdated, it's still a very good source of information if you want some combos, basic combo structure. But yeah, I appreciate all the feedback you guys gave on the previous video. It seems the format was very well received, so I'm very happy about that. I do appreciate and like being able to convey a lot more information, more concise information. So yeah, I do like this format. But yeah, just like last time, you guys can let me know if you learned something new, if the guide helped you, how the format can improve, anything related to that. But yeah, as always, thank you guys so much for watching, those that stayed till the end, and I hope to see you in the next part of the Dragon Guide. Cheers.